Hello there. My name is Walter Ratcliffe, and I've come this afternoon. First of all, I'm honored to be a part of the Men's Full Life Health Summit 2025. And I'm just honored to be here today. And I want to talk to you about rebooting relationships with fathers and their sons and daughters. And I think this is very essential. And I'm talking on things that are based from my experience. I'm not an expert by any means, but when I first graduated from college, I was working at the Justice Center as a probation officer, and we would prepare reports for the judges as they were going to sentence defendants. And the reports would include family history. And oftentimes I would ask a lot of young men who would be in front of me, who was your mother, who was your father? And there was a recurring answer that I would often hear from the young men, and that was, I don't have a father. I don't know my father. I worked in that field for 30 years. Also worked in ministry for over 30 years. And oftentimes when I would be around some young ladies who were going through troubled times because I was the youth pastor, and I would ask them that same question, where is your father? And oftentimes I would get the same answer. I don't know who my father is. My father is not in my life. And so it started me on this quest about trying to do something that could heal relationships with fathers and their sons and daughters, fathers who had been out of the lives of their sons and of their daughters. And it caused me to write a book called The Reboot, Reconnecting Fathers with Their Sons and Daughters. And the reason I use the term reboot is that we live in this day and age where we have different kind of devices, where we have phones, we have pads, things of that nature. And oftentimes when they are not operating properly, the first thing that we are told to do is to reboot. And I thought it was an apropos title, when relationships with fathers and their daughters, fathers and their sons are not functioning right, it's time for a reboot. Through all of my years and my experience in this field, in the courts, in the church, I often recognize that oftentimes when a father was not in the life of his son, it manifested in negative behavior. It manifested in things like abuse of substances or anger or getting involved in criminal activity. I oftentimes saw too with young ladies when fathers weren't in the lives of their daughters, there was this emptiness I called a father's wound. And these young ladies would develop a father hunger. They would develop this hunger to have a man fill that hole that the father had left in them. And oftentimes, they would stay in dysfunctional relationships. They would stay in abusive relationships just based on this need to have a man fill that hole that the father left in them. When a father's not in the life of their children, it hurts the children because the children wind up having oftentimes a negative self-outlook, a negative self-view of themselves, and they go about life damaged emotionally. And so I just thought that there was a need to address that issue, that it was necessary for fathers to be in the lives of their children more and more in this day and age that we're living in than ever before. There is a saying, and that saying is, fathers are indispensable in the lives of their children. They are their sons' first heroes and their daughters' first love. I remember having a conversation with a young lady who was trying to read the book, and she said that in the beginning she had a hard time with it. She said because it brought back memories and issues with her father not being in her life. And she said something that really touched my heart. I wish that I had talked to her before I wrote the book because I would have put it in there. She said that as she read the book, she thought about the fact that her father was not in her life. And she said two things kept coming to her. And that was, number one, she never had an opportunity to dance with her father. And number two, her father was not there to walk her down the aisle. Fathers are indispensable in the lives of their children. So as I wrote this book, I came up with 4 things. I call them the 4 A's of fatherhood. 4 things that children need in their lives from their fathers. 4 things. And the first thing is attention. They need their father's attention. They need their father to be present in their lives, actively listening and engaged in the life of them, for them to feel valued. They need the attention of their father. The second one was acknowledgement. They need their father's acknowledgement to be recognized and validated by their father. Fathers to validate their thoughts, their emotions, their experiences. The third thing is they need their father's affection. They need their father to show love to them through words, through touch, through actions. And then the last thing is they need their father's affirmation, to speak positively into their lives, to encourage them, to give them words of encouragement, to help build up their self-worth. Fathers are indispensable in the lives of their children. There's a story that I bring out in the book that talks about shows an illustration of the importance of that father, of that male in the life of his child. And it's about a wildlife preserve. Some people developed a wildlife preserve. They built a wildlife preserve. And they had all different types of animals in that preserve. And they had a bunch of young bull elephants. They were all young elephants, 1 to 2, maybe 3 years old. That's all they were. And they had them in the preserve. And these wild young elephants were tearing up the wildlife preserve. They were tearing up all of the landscape. They were tearing up the fences. They were going into areas where they shouldn't be. They were out of control. And the people who ran this preserve could not figure out what the problem was. But what they decided to do was bring some older bull elephants into the preserve. So they put the older bull elephants with the young bull elephants. And when the older bull elephants got into the preserve, the first thing they started doing was flapping their ears. They started stomping their foot. They started lifting up their trunks and waving it. They started shifting their tails back and forth. And when the younger bull elephants saw this, they immediately calmed down. They immediately got in line. They immediately got in order. We are living in a time where we have a lot of young bull elephants in our homes, in our society, who are running wild, and they need some older bull elephants in their home to shift their ears, to make their trunk go back and forth, to stomp on the ground, to bring these young bull elephants back under control. And I liken that to fathers being in the lives of these young men and in these young women in their lives. So I just wanted to share the importance of fatherhood, the importance of fathers and being in relationship with their sons and daughters. That's all I have to say.